recording this, so hopefully I'll be able to figure out how to put it on YouTube for everyone else. So pretty much, everyone saw what Dr. Menchaca sent out, that we're doing the exercises at the end of the chapters. And so the first one for chapter 1 was number 4 through 6. Oh, and just a little thing that I realized, I don't know if, like on the first page, there's these little mini QR codes. If you scan them, they're videos that go over some of the most important points over the chapter. I found those really helpful when I was going through this last night. But so for number 4, it's talking about 4 researchers, Warren, Xavier, Yolanda, and Zelda. They've devised different operational measures for gauging individual levels of political knowledge. Each researcher's operation measure has a scale going from 0 to 100, so low knowledge to high knowledge. And for the purposes of this exercise, we know that the true level of knowledge is going to be 50. And so then it gives us what they got as their results when they were testing people. And so Warren got 40, 60, 70, and 45. Xavier got 48, 48, 50, and 54. Yolanda got 49, 50, 51, and 50. And Zelda got 45, 44, 44, 46. So the questions A, B, C, and D are asking about validity and reliability. Does anyone have any questions about the difference between those? Take that.
Wait, did you say it was validity and reliability?
Yes.
Reliability, what does that come out being?
So reliability means that when your experiment is repeated, you're getting the very similar results.
Okay, and so then that's not so much like how close the result is to what you want, but more like how often the result is repeated, right?
Exactly. So even if you're completely wrong, you're still getting the same wrong answer over and over again. That's still a reliable experiment.
Okay, then. All right. Thank you very much.
So let me go ahead and try to share this. Are you guys able to see my screen? Oh, wait.
No, not yet.
There we go. Now you should be able to. So right here we have each of the 4s, what they got as the results. And so we're asked to find who had high validity and high reliability, who had high validity, low reliability, who had low validity and high reliability, and who had low validity and low reliability. So looking at Warren right away, we see, first off, his results are all over the place. So we know it has really low reliability. And we know for something to be valid, in this case, since 50 is the true knowledge, that's the answer we're looking for. And you can see he doesn't even have that on there. So that's going to be low validity and low reliability. For Xavier, so he has 48, 48, 50, and 54. So he's kind of in the same ballpark, but he is pretty much right there at the validity. But when you look at how far apart his lowest one to his highest one is, it kind of brings it down on the reliability. And so that's why, even though his numbers are still only 6 points apart, it's considered high validity, but low reliability. So then, right. One second, just, yeah, high validity and lower liability. So then Yolanda, she's just completely right on the money, never more than one away and hits the 50s twice. So that's going to be high validity, high reliability. And then Zelda, all her numbers are right next to each other. So she has the high reliability, but she's still pretty far off from the 50, which is the valid mark. So she has low validity, but high reliability. Are there any questions on that?
No, I think that was pretty clear.
Yeah, that was a pretty simple one.
Mhm.
So this one's, I thought was kind of interesting, and I had to like kind of put some thought because it was nothing to do with math or anything. So pretty much there was a political scientist that was trying to see which candidate had more support prior to an election. And he was trying to base it completely off of the yard signs, with their names. And so it says 2 candidates are running against each other for a seat on the city commission. You would like to obtain a valid measurement of which candidate has more pre-election support among the residents of your neighborhood. Your operational measure, obtain a precise count of yard signs supporting each candidate. The candidate with the greater number of yard signs will be measured as having greater pre-election support than the candidate having fewer yard signs. So this one is talking about face validity, which, is like stating that what you're trying to measure is what you're actually measuring. There's nothing unintended that you're actually measuring. So it is saying that your experiment of counting yard signs is in fact measuring the amount of support that candidate has. And so obviously this has very low face validity because that could measure a whole bunch of different things. And the one example the question gives is it could simply just be an example of campaign budget. If one candidate has more money, they can spend more money on buying those signs and giving them out. And so there's going to be more signs in that neighborhood than the other candidate who doesn't have as much money. So it's asking to describe 2 additional unintended characteristics that plausibly are being measured by the count of numbers of yard signs. So did you guys come up with any other plausible characteristics that could be being measured there?
I haven't had a chance to look at it because I don't have the book.
Oh, okay. So like one thing, the only one that I could really come up with, because I thought this was a really weird question.
Yeah.
But so nowadays, in my opinion, yard signs are kind of a way that older people, the boomers show support.
Mhm.
Much more of the younger crowd, they're going to show their support on social media. And so I feel like this could actually be measuring, the age of the people in that neighborhood. Because, and it's just that, with how, they say generally older people are Republicans, younger people are Democrats. And so maybe the Republican is going to have more signs in that area because his support demographic is older. Whereas the other candidate has a bunch of younger people supporting him. And so they're showing support on social media and things like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's all I could really come up with. I was hoping you guys would have something better than me.
I think another thing that it could be talking about, obviously, yard signs. Well, you would have to have a yard for it. It's not taking into account people who may live in a apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that could be part of it. And that could go tie into the economic status of like their voters, perhaps.
Exactly. So that's really all this question was talking about, was just the face validity. So any questions or comments on that?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm good. Can you send a
So,
picture of the questions, like that page, to the group chat?
oh, yep.
Answer the question. Have you guys seen the bonus question that he just put?
Did he say it was a bonus question?
Yeah, well, it's like a new one.
Right. So what happened was for the 3B that he sent earlier today,
Yeah.
he so I had like wrote up a whole thing on it that I'll show you here in a little bit. It's further down in this. And I sent it to him and I was like, hey, so I'm doing a tutoring session later. I just want to make sure I'm on the right track with this, because I just wanted to make sure, because the question was kind of weird. And so he looked over and he's like, yeah, that's absolutely great for that answer, for that question. But that wasn't the question I actually wanted you guys to answer. I sent out the wrong one. So, but I did like already answer that one. So we'll be going over the new one that he added on.
Okay.
Okay. So there's the 2 pages for, or the questions for chapter 1. It's just number 4 through 6.
Thank you.
Not a problem. So going on to number 6, this guy named Mutt is wanting to weigh his dog. And so the process he comes up with goes as follows. While holding the dog, he steps onto a bathroom scale and records the weight. Just to make sure he got it right, he repeats the procedure. While holding the dog, he steps onto the scale and a second time records the weight. Obviously, Mutt's strategy will produce a faulty measurement of the intended characteristic, the weight of the dog. Review the concepts of reliability and validity again, and figure 1-4, which uses a target analogy to illustrate combinations of criteria. So part A is, which of these scenarios best fits Mutt's measurement of the dog's weight? Not reliable or valid, valid but not reliable, or reliable but not valid?
Valid but not reliable. Oh, it's valid because he's getting the same answer, but it's not reliable because he's also stepping on the scale, right?
It's switched. It's reliable because he's getting the same answer,
Okay.
but it's not valid because he's not getting the dog's weight. He's getting his weight plus the dog.
Okay. That makes sense.
So making part B is making reference to the characteristics of reliability and validity. Explain. Okay, well, I just explained that it's reliable because he is getting the same weight both times, but it's not valid because his weight is included. And then so describe how Mutt could change this measurement procedure to produce a measurement of his dog weight that is both valid and reliable. So I've actually done this when I'm measuring my rucksack, which it's like a backpack that we use in the Army, put a whole bunch of weight in it. And so when I do that, what I'll do is I'll get on the scale with my ruck on. So I'm getting the weight of my ruck plus my body. Then I'll get off the scale, put the ruck down, step back on the scale, get my weight, and then I subtract my weight from the combined weight. And that gives me the weight of my ruck.
Okay, so just finding the difference.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's why I put here, and the way that I would do it is to make sure that it's reliable and valid, you would do each measurement 3 times. So get on the scale with the dog, get the measurement, get off the scale, and then get on the scale by yourself, get your measurement, and then repeat that 2 more times. And if you got the same answer all 3 times, then you know you have the correct weight. And then just subtract your weight from the combined weight, and that'll give you the dog's weight. Any questions on that?
No.
All righty. So I will send, we're going on to chapter 2 on, the question is on page 67. I'll send it right now. This one I can do a close-up of because it's only one question. So for chapter 2, it's looking at, basically we're giving an example and we're supposed to state whether the term is a variable name or the variable value. And then we're supposed to state the level of measurement. So whether something is, so example is support of same-sex marriage. Well, that's going to be a variable name because the variable value would be oppose it or in favor of it, or oppose or support. And then, so then we're going to be looking at the levels of measurement, which is nominal, which is deals with differences, not qualities, like marital status. So like widowed, divorced, never married. They can't be ranked. You can't say one's better or give one more value than the other one. Then there is ordinal, which ordinal can go onto scales. It deals with differences and they can be ranked. So that's like the example of the party ID, how there's, extremely liberal, somewhat liberal, independent, somewhat conservative, very conservative. So you can rank them. And then there's interval level, which communicates exact differences. These are like numbers. So for like difference in age or weight or income, things like that. So we're just going to go down these. So like the first one is age.
And you're saying variable is the one with numbers and can be differences, like it can be ranked.
So are you asking about interval?
I don't know. Hold on, I'm filling up my notes.
Okay.
A variable, yes, interval. Yeah, okay. So age is a variable name, right?
Yes, that's the variable name.
Okay.
So if you look down at like 4 down lower, it says 57 years.
Mhm.
That is a value of the variable age.
Mhm.
So, and those are interval because it's an exact number.
Okay. And then what? Oh, never mind. Nominal is a category, so like millennial.
Yeah. Well, and so I thought that was interesting with millennial because almost in a way you could rank it because it's like for this purpose, I'm pretty sure millennial is supposed to be nominal, just a category. But if you're going by like, boomers are older than millennials and Gen Z are younger than millennials, like in a way you can rank them.
Yeah.
But I think for the sake of the textbook, I think that they consider it to be nominal.
That's tricky.
Yeah, that was one where I was like, we might ask him that.
Yeah. I think it depends on the context. Like
right. So So like the next one after age is independent leaner.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what that ordinal, where we're talking about how it's on a scale.
Yeah.
And so an independent leaner would, maybe be it's could either be directly in the middle, or if it's an independent leaning or a conservative leaning independent reader, it might be a 4, or a liberal leaning independent might be a 3. But either way, it's ranked on a scale.
Yeah.
And then abortion opinion is much the same way. And so once again, that's so independent leaner is the variable value. That's the value on the scale. Whereas abortion opinion is the variable name.
Mm-hmm.
And then so on the scale, on the ordinal scale, it'll have in favor of, don't really care, opposed. So then taxable income, once again, that's the name of the variable. And taxable income is going to be an exact number. I made, $20,000 of taxable income that I report to the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is an interval value. We already went over the 57 years and millennial. Millennial is a value. Lenient. I don't know what they're talking about there, but it's obviously a value.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be on that ordinal scale, because lenient's not a number or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then religious denomination, much like your marital status or anything like that, or gender, there's not a way to rank it or anything. So that's going to be the variable name. Things like Christian, Catholic, atheist, agnostic, those are going to be your denominations, your variable values, and then that's on a nominal.
So really quick, going back to the abortion opinion, how do you think that one is ordinal?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have I
guess like a feeling thermometer.
Yeah, you can have completely opposed. Sometimes it's okay.
Okay.
I don't really care. I'm absolutely in favor of it, no matter what. Women should be able to get an abortion.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. I see that now.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
All right. So we're going to move on to chapter 3. And I'll send this picture. All right. This will have to be 2 pictures because it's on 2 different pages.
Okay.
So here's the first part, which is kind of explaining what we're doing. And then the ABCD at the top is the second part. So this one is talking about mistakes made with hypotheses. And so we're supposed to identify and describe at least one reason why it's a poor hypothesis, and then rewrite the statement in proper hypothesis writing form. So their example is income and partisanship are related. And it says this statement does not identify units of analysis. It also does not state the tendency of the relationship, whether it goes up or down or is more or less than another one. And it doesn't say how income and partisanship are related. A better way of writing it is, in comparison of individuals, people with lower incomes will be more likely to be Democrat than people with higher incomes. So now, as you can see right there, I went back and I found the 4 major mistakes when writing a hypothesis. And so one is describing only one variable. So like in A, where it says in comparison of individuals, some people pay more attention to political campaigns than others. It's like, okay, so we know the dependent variable is attention spent on, or attention paid to political campaigns. We don't know what is the thing that affects it, what the other people are, whether it's, education, whether it's political ideology, whether it's gender. It's only giving us that one variable, which is paying more attention to political campaigns. So like the one that I wrote to do it would be, in comparison of individuals, older people are more likely to pay attention to political campaigns than younger people. So that way it shows that it's, the second variable, the independent variable, is the age of people. Older people are more likely, younger people are less likely. So it also shows that tendency. The second one is not making a complicit comparison. And so this one, number B, democracies are not likely to wage war with each other. It's just kind of like, I don't know, there's no complicit comparison there. It doesn't really explain, like, are more likely or less likely than someone else, or what it was. So the way I rewrote it is, democracies are less likely to go to war with each other than non-democratic nations. Which honestly, it seems really similar to the other one, but then the third is not stating direction or tendency. So age and a party affiliation are related. Okay, how are they related? So I rewrote it to, younger people are more likely to identify as Democrats than older people. Or the transverse of that, older people are more likely to identify as Republicans than younger people. And then the last one is just super vague, and it's, some people support increased funding for the arts. Okay, who are some people, and what makes them support increased funding, or everything. So I wrote it as, Democrats are more likely to support increased funding, increased federal funding for arts than Republicans. Are there any questions about that?
No.
Alrighty. Moving on to chapter 4. All right, so number 1. So this one says, below are 3 statements. For each statement, do the following. State whether the statement is true or false and explain your reasoning. So, and sending the 3 statements right now. So the first one, in a randomized experiment, there is always one control group and one treatment group. What do you all think?
True.
You said true?
Yes, it's true.
So I got that it was false because of the fact that it says there's only one treatment group.
Well, aren't they always split up into a control group and a one treatment group?
Right, but you could have multiple treatments. If you look on page 114, I'll send this picture to the group. let me flip it. So in this picture, this was another field experiment with sending out information about getting out to vote. And so the control group was just, they didn't get anything, any unsolicited mail or anything like that. The second group, Civic Duty, they got a letter stating basically it's your civic duty to go and vote. The Hawthorne group got a letter saying, hey, we're doing a study and we want to see how many people go out and vote and this and that. And so they knew they were being studied. And then let me forget what the self and the neighbors was.
So in other words, the question, the statement should have been, there is always at least one control group and at least one treatment group.
There should be one control group and at least one treatment group.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, so it's one of those like schematics. It's like, yes, it's correct, but I don't know if it was going off of grammar or something, like, those tests they throw in only, and then it's wrong because it said only.
Yeah.
So, but yes, like you definitely need to have both of those. But in my opinion, when I was reading it, I think that's what they were going for. So any questions on that?
No.
So then the second one is field experiments have less external validity than do laboratory experiments. You guys remember about internal and external validity?
Yeah. This means that field experiments. Field experiments have lower.
For that one, it would be, yeah, because external validity is applying to specifically like not like selected like conditions, I guess.
Right. So the statement is false because like where that originally came from, like it was that like laboratory experiments have the less external validity because they're in controlled environments. The people know that they're being studied, so they might not act exactly how they would act in real world. Whereas field experiments, they're done in real world. People are a little bit more relaxed. They don't always know that they're being studied. And so they're just going to go about how they normally would. And so because of that, field experiments have more external validity.
Yeah, I remember that.
Any questions on that?
I think we're good on that one.
Okay. And then the last one, random assignments neutralizes rival explanations.
Would that be true?
I said it was true. And so the reason is because if like one of the things it's dealing with is like selection bias, where you're putting a certain type of people into the control versus a certain type of people into the treatment group. And so by doing random, you know, you're going to get not all the young people in one group and not all the old in another. And so you'll get a mix of everyone everywhere. So things that are like, say that, you know, I think one example in the book that it used was a doctor who had surgical patients, and if he had only young people in the treatment and only old people in the control, well, just the difference in age could cause a rival explanation of why the control group didn't survive as well. Because the younger people were able to fight off the disease or could heal faster or whatever the reason is. And so the random assignments takes away the chance of one type of people all being grouped in one of the groups. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on that? I don't know if I explained that perfectly, but.
No questions.
Okay. All right, going on to question 4. I'll go ahead and send out this one. And the last part will come in. All right. So this is talking about a campaign manager who's wanting to know if like basically how ads are affecting how people feel about a candidate. And so first he's wondering, why does it matter what the control group thinks about the candidate after they, you know, didn't watch the ad? Why does it matter? And so can anyone recall what that measurement is called?
The level of like the field thermometer.
That's what they would probably use for it, but I was more thinking of the post-treatment measurement. So you're
Yes.
going to take a measurement before the pre-treatment, or you normally would. There's certain cases where you don't, but then you would also take a post. And so the campaign manager is asking, well, if that group isn't going to care, or if they're not even going to see the ad, why does it matter what they think about afterwards? And why would you guys think that that's important?
Because it shows that they're going the way that they feel before and the way that they feel after. Even if they're not going to see it, you just still have to know how they feel before the treatment started.
Exactly. It kind of gives you your baseline. And then also, so when someone, say when you first ask someone, like, oh, how do you feel about this candidate? And they're like, oh, screw that guy. And then, you know, while they're sitting there watching videos of cats or whatever else, and they're like, you know what, when I really think about it, like, no, he did this and he wasn't that bad. And then so after, they're like, you know, before they gave him a 25 on the thermometer, and then after they gave him a 50. And so even without watching the ad, they had a 25-point jump. Well, then when you have your treatment group that before, you know, they give them a 25, and then after they give them a 55, well, the person who didn't watch it went up 25 points already, whereas the other person who watched the ad went up 30 points, but, you would only attribute the 5 points to the ad. So that's just like one kind of an example of, why you need to get both for the control and the treatment group. And so then this goes into why the next question would go into what are reasons why that pre-treatment is good and why it could actually be bad. So we already talked about advantages, which is, kind of knowing your baseline of where people started before they watched the advertisement or whatever it is. And another thing is that it can also help you test for the effectiveness of randomization. So if you happen to, just happen to see that everybody in your treatment group is like, a huge Trump fan or something like that, whereas everyone in your control happens to be Bernie Sanders fans, then you already know, okay, we need to change this up because the numbers aren't going to be right. It's not random enough. What do you think some of the disadvantages could be?
Wouldn't the video or something kind of persuade somebody to, okay, I didn't like him now, and now I don't like him even more?
It could. Which that'd be definitely something a campaign manager would want to know, if his campaign ad for his candidate actually makes people dislike them more.
Would that be considered a disadvantage?
Well, no, because this is talking about the
Oh, I see it.
of pre-treatment measurements. So it's kind of the idea that when you ask someone right before, like, oh, what do you think about this candidate? It brings that candidate straight to their mind. And then, kind of like the whole thing is like, if you, before you own a black truck, you never see black trucks before. But once you own it, you start noticing all the black trucks. Well, when someone brings up a certain candidate and then you watch a campaign ad for that candidate or something even somewhat revolving around it, like you're going to tune in more because you're like, oh yeah. And so it can bring less external validity to the experiment, because you're kind of preempting them to think about either this topic or this candidate before they watch the video that's going to mention that, versus when people watch this at home, they're not going to have someone, hey, what do you think about that candidate? Okay, watch this video.
I get it now. I understand the way it kind of gives them it puts it in their mind already, so they'll have already thoughts built up before they even watch it.
Yep. Any other questions on that?
No, you're good.
All right. So now this next question was very specific from the reading. And it was, does this campaign manager need to get a institutional review board to review this experiment? And if so, what level of review should be received? So did anyone remember reading about this part in chapter 4? So
No, I didn't.
yeah, so it's let's see. I know it was right near the end of the chapter. So it's under the experiment involving human subjects on page 125. And so basically it, the main thing to know is that this only applies to educational institutions. So the short answer to this question is no, the campaign manager does not, because he doesn't work for or is doing research under an educational institution. But it says, if you're conducting research on human subjects, that's subject to oh wait, no, hold on. So if you're directly or indirectly interacting with living people to obtain information for general knowledge, you're conducting human subject research that is subject to regulation and institutional review. And so it does make, this chapter, it does make differences between just observing humans and doing things that actually, like, even if you're just mailing something to them, you're in some way like doing something that can affect their behavior. And so it's considered an invasive experiment. And then it also goes into like whether or not you're deceiving people about the experiment, or whether or not you're, you know, even if there's like no possible harm and everything. Because then later it goes into what level of review, which is the second part, which is what type of level. And so the first level is an expedited review, which is just where one person comes down, checks it out and everything, and is like, okay, you're good, or no, you can't do that. And so that is called an expedited review by a single IRB staff member. Expedited reviews may be appropriate when the researcher must deceive subjects about the true purpose of the experiment, or cannot obtain informed prior consent, but the purpose of an experiment that poses minimal risk to participants. Example, you know, when you're mailing stuff out. But then there are like these full-blown ones where you're doing more testing on where the risk can be a little bit higher, and that you have to get reviewed by an entire panel of the IRB members, and they only meet every now and then. So like you could have this great experiment planned, and then you have to wait 6 months just to get it for them to meet to say yay or nay on it. So, but it also says here, it's important to note that private entities are not governed by the same human subject research regulations as academic institutions. Private sector businesses conduct experiments on human subjects all the time to test products, promotions, marketing strategies, so on and so forth. So even political scientists at a private law firm don't have to worry about this, but a political science at a university does. So in this one, you know, for what they're saying about this experiment, it would simply just be an expedited review because there's little to no expected harm to the participants. So, any questions on that? All righty. Now moving on to chapter 5, and these ones were a bit more intense. So chapter 5, question 1, I will send to the chat right now. So this one is, it gives three different hypotheses, and you're supposed to come up with a plausible alternative causable variable. And then you're supposed to describe how this variable might affect the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. So this is kind of like what we were talking about in class about how, you know, there's gun control on partisanship, but then there's also a gender aspect to it. And so trying to find different things. So the first hypothesis is, in a comparison of individuals, younger people are more likely to vote Democrat than older people. Can anyone come up with any plausible alternative causal variables for that?
It could also be economic status as well.
Yeah, that's the only one I could come up with. Anyone have any other ideas besides that?
Religion, like which like I guess how religious they are or what religion they follow could be a factor.
Well, so the issue with that is that, you know, that's going to make it so that, you know, because it's talking about the variable of age and then political partisanship. And so, you know, not all young people are one religion. And so that one, while that would kind of be its own variable. So like with the example of income level, my explanation was younger people generally make less money as they're just starting out in their careers, whereas older people who have established careers generally make more money. People with more money generally vote Republican, as people with less money generally vote Democrat. So, which I mean, you can still say there's plenty of people that are young that make tons of money, but does that kind of make sense in the difference between religion and the income? So, because like the example in it is, in comparison of countries, those with decentralized governments have higher percentage of citizens who trust the government than do countries with centralized governments. A plausible alternative is the size of the country's population. Countries with decentralized governments might also have smaller populations than countries with centralized governments. If smaller countries have higher percentage of trusting citizens than larger countries, then the difference in size, not the difference in decentralization, could explain the relationship between the independent and dependent variables. So it's basically saying is like, it looks like it's the fact of decentralization, or it looks like it's the fact of age that is causing people to go, you know, causing the independent or the dependent variable to look one way. But there's actually this other factor, or the lurking factor, I believe is what Dr. Menchaca called it, that is the real issue. I think that was his case when he was explaining it, was the cities with more immigrants have higher English or more English proficiency. And it's really that, you know, higher big metropolises attract a lot of immigrants, but they also have better school systems. And so that's why there's better English. So the next one, in comparison of countries, democracies are less likely than non-democracies to initiate international military conflict. Anyone have any ideas for that one? So the example I came up with is that the fact that most modern democracies in the world belong to NATO. And so through NATO, they have actual binding agreements not to initiate war with other countries. And also they have agreements to like back up each other in case someone attacks one of the other NATO members. And so it happens that the majority of countries in NATO are democracies. So it appears that democracies are less likely to initiate military conflict when it's more about NATO countries, because they have binding laws against them invading other countries, are less likely to do it. So it's not so much about the fact that they're democracies, they just happen to be democracies that are in NATO. Everyone good with that?
Yeah.
Kind of making sense?
No, yeah, it does.
Yeah, these questions are just weird, and you have to like really, really think hard just to find something that somewhat sounds right.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember learning about NATO, but it's like it's something that I just wouldn't like come up with. Like if you're asking me like what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. It's just it's just weird. It's
Yeah.
pretty hard. It makes you think a lot.
Yeah, the only reason I came up with the NATO thing was because I was listening to the news the other day about Russia invading Ukraine, and then they're talking about NATO and how NATO countries work and how they work together, and I was like, oh, that makes sense for this question.
Mm-hmm.
Random news thing I was listening to. So here's another one, which this one I really didn't like. In comparison of individuals, Southerners, which Southerners, it says Southerners, are less likely to turn out to vote than non-Southerners. So this question's like, or thesis is super vague, because it's like, what are these Southern Californians, or Californians, or are these Southern Koreans, or are these,
Yeah.
the South, like, Alabama and Florida and
I'm
all of it.
assuming.
I was just like, okay. So I kind of like thought about it as like in a context of right around the Civil War during the Second Industrial Revolution, where the South was all agriculture and the North was all industrial, a lot of factories. And so I put, while voting based to seem to be based on location, it's actually a result of the type of economies. Southern economies that are more agriculture economies vote less than the industrial economies of the North. So it's just attributing it to something other than what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any more question, comments, concerns on that question?
No.
Okay. So we can go into this, which is chapter 5, 3B. This was the one that we weren't supposed to do, but he still said it was good to do. And so we can look at this real quick. We'll go ahead and send the pictures. So the first picture just kind of gives the background that, they're talking about legalization of marijuana. And there's one explanation or hypothesis saying that those who are younger are more likely to favor legalization than those who are older. Then there's an educational explanation that suggests that higher levels of education are more likely to favor legalization over lower levels of education. For this purposes, age will be X, education will be Z, and opinions about legalization of marijuana will be Y. So remember, X causes Y. So X is our independent variable, Y is our dependent variable, and then our age is our dependent, legalization is our dependent, age is our independent, and then Z is the one that we're trying to control for. It's a second independent or we're trying to control for. And so it says, suppose that after controlling for education, Z, the set of the relationship of X, Z, and Y turned out to be additive. So additive is where basically your difference between the younger and the higher in low education areas is going to be have the same slope, but it's just going to be higher for between low and high in high education. And so we have our hypothesis 1, younger individuals favor legalization of marijuana. And our hypothesis 2, more educated individuals favor the legalization of marijuana. So I created this graph. Everyone's able to see that, right?
Yes.
Or sorry, this table.
Mhm.
So to control for education is the top one. So it's right here and we have low. So everything like over here is all in a low education. Everything over here is high education. And then we have our age. So low education, low age, low education, high age, low education or high education, low age, high education, high age. And so we see here that in favor, we have, I just did small numbers to make this easy. So we have a total of 20 people that were interviewed, and 7 of the low age people are in favor and 3 are opposed in the low age. When we come over here to the high education, we have 9 in favor and 1 opposed. So you can see how the higher education brought more people up, more people to be in favor. And then we also have where the lower age is has more people than the higher age. So there's only 4, 4, and 6 against. And then over here, but in the high education area, there is 6, 4, and 4 against. And so when we take the difference, so over here, you have 90 minus 70. So you have 20, and then you have 60 minus 40 and 20. So both ways, there's a 20% increase in the people that were in favor of legalizing marijuana, in regardless of whether of their age, based on their education. And so when we look at the chart, you can see how they're parallel. Whereas the high age is lower and the lower age has higher, starts at 70, goes to 90. And so that's the way that the two variables kind of work the same. So as you can see, both the low education and high education, younger individuals prefer legalization over the higher age individuals, but the better education individuals prefer legalization at higher rates than the lower. The line graph shows the additive relationship. So no matter what, like the age group, the higher education is going to more prefer legalization. So are there any questions on that?
Yes, the numbers that you got, Is it something that you had to do, or did you get those from the book?
I had to just make these ones up.
Oh, okay.
So that's why they're super low, and I only used 20 people from high and 20 people from low, just to make it easy with the percentages and everything. So yeah, I made up those numbers just to kind of show the it's easy to see the rise in people that are in favor.
Oh, okay.
Now, the next one that we're going to do, I didn't make those up. Any other questions, comments on this?
I think we're good on this one.
Okay. So this is the one we're supposed to do. And so question 4, and I'm sending the picture right now. So it's question 4 and number B, which is at the very bottom of the page, underneath the graph. So it says, it stands to reason that a link may exist between religious attendance, the independent variable, and the willingness to extend freedom of speech to radical Muslim clerics, the dependent variable, in comparison of individuals. People who frequently attend religious services will be less likely to extend free speech rights to radical Muslims than will people who infrequently attend. Education, the controlled variable, might also be related to speech opinions, in that less educated people have less tolerant attitudes than those with more education. And this is the graph that we get, which is all just straight, just the numbers, no percentages. And so basically we're supposed to decide which pattern of spuriousness, additive, or interaction best describes the set of relationships, and then write a complete sentence explaining your answer. So what would be the first step in order to tell which one of if the pattern is spurious, additive, or interaction? Because he said that we have to do something to this table.
Is it turning into percent?
Yep,
Percentages?
exactly. So, and so one of the things, so obviously, easiest way to get a percentage, if you know the total number and then you know the number you're getting the percentage for, all I do is I take, so if we want the percentage of 121, let me pull up my calculator. There we go. All right. So if I want to find the percentage of 121 of the total 318. So this is a big thing, is you have to remember that you're always working straight down. Right here, we're looking at all the people that are of low education and low religious attendance. And so we're working straight down, not across. So we're going to take the 121 and just divide it by the total at the bottom of 318. And so we get 38%. So we can just put that in right above there. And then So then we have 197 is the other part. Divided by 318. That equals about 62%. And so obviously we can all tell that 38 plus 62, that equals 100%. So we know our percentages are correct. And so basically all we're doing is that all the way across all these things until we get our table all the way filled out like this. And then, so what's going to be the next step with figuring out our the difference between like high education and low education on
Can you repeat that again?
what's the next step to figuring out the like, so next we want to find our difference, like how much it changes when we switch from low to high education, and what the like what are we going to do next?
Don't you subtract the difference between, say, the 162 on high education and high religion attendance, and then the same thing for the other one, subtract them, and then you find the difference between them?
Yep, exactly. Except we're going to subtract with the percentages,
Correct.
because like we can see, if we subtract 162 over here where there's 357 minus 44 of 231, like it's kind of apples and oranges. And so that's why we do the percentages. So we got like 45 over here minus 19. And so we're going to see. So we get 19 on that side. And then if we do 62 minus 38, taking these two, 62 minus 38 equals 24. So, you know, it's close. It's in the same ballpark. Got a chat. All right, have a good one, Darren. So we got 19 for, right? 45. Oh, sorry. So 26 on the high and then 24 on the low. So they're right there next to each other. And so we can see how when we look at the educational difference on this, it's still additive because they're parallel with each other. So like I said, it was very similar to the other one. It's just we were creating the table and turning into the percentages. And then you can also like always look at different things like controlling for the religious attendance instead, where instead of going across here, you're just going to go like this and see those. So like on seeing how religious attendance affects in low. So we have 38 minus 19 So yeah, that's 19. Right here is the difference of 19 in low based on religious attendance when you change it. And then when we go over here in the high education, we get 17. And so those are additive as well. Because the difference is right on spot with each other. Any questions or anything on that? All righty, well, did you guys have any questions on anything else or anything you wanted to go over?
I have a question. So the last class, I missed it. So the last class, y'all were just doing all the examples, the exercises, I mean?
No, no, we didn't even look at that. The last class, let me go into my notes. And I don't know if you saw the notes that I printed or that I sent to the group chat.
Yes.
I think the last class we just went over chapter 5, but then he did say to start bringing the book because we're gonna look at exercises.
Yeah, so it's making controlled comparisons is what the whole process is called. And so it was basically just talking about like you're being able to take make these tables and then turn them into graphs. And then by reading the graphs, knowing whether it's spurious, which is going to have like the graph is just going to be 2 flat lines, or whether you're going to have the additive where they're going to change slope, but they'll either be parallel, positive, or negative. And then interactive, which means they just can go like that. They can go like, there's no parallelness to them. And so, yeah, it was all just about chapter 5, zero order relationships, comparisons. A lot of it was vocab, honestly, confounder, partial relationships, partial effects, control effects, the relationships. And then he just kind of went into showing us one of these experiments like that we just went over.
Okay. And then these exercises are due to this tomorrow, correct?
So that I was kind of confused because he didn't really like say if we needed to print them out or anything, right? I think
No, he didn't say. I think we're just gonna look at them tomorrow, but I don't think we have to bring like a sheet for them. I don't know. I don't think so. He would have said.
yeah, I feel like it's just going to be simply we're going to chat about it.
Mhm.
So yeah. So I think it's just going to kind of gauge where everyone's at on all these different things. So be like, oh, for this question, what did you guys find? That's my assumption though.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
alrighty.
Hey,
Alright.
just for clarification, where it says legalization opinion, allow and do not allow, that will be an example of ordinal legal variables.
Yes. Yeah, those would be ordinal because they can be ranked.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just have that little question. Thanks.
Not a problem. Alrighty, if nothing else, y'all have a good rest of your night and see you all in class tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Of course.
Yes, thank you.
Happy
Bye.
to help. All right, y'all have a great one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.